Now welcome to another edition of News from Naboo with Thor's Lightning Takes. Now with more Thor's Lightning Takes because Naboo is a bit under the weather.
That's why there was no Monday news.
Yeah. It's a good thing we
Using
recorded
my
the
Sith voice, I guess.
It's a good thing we recorded memes before before this set in.
Yeah. Sorry, everybody. I'm going to sound like garbage.
You sound great.
Do I?
No, you sound really strange.
Thank you.
Anyway, let's get to the news.
So today we've got an interview, because we are, of course, on the precipice of The Bad Batch.
We are.
Season 3, final season. Super excited.
Super excited indeed.
So we got some more quotes from the producers, Rao and Corbett, about things that are interesting. First off, they say when they first started the show, they hoped they could get 3 seasons to tell the whole story. When they kicked off Season 1, we had Order 66, the team trying to figure out where they fit in the galaxy. They knew Season 2 was going to be a bit darker, because the team would have to lose in some way. As the season progressed, it became clear that the way for them to lose is essentially have the team be fractured. That's what happens when we lose Tech. We also lose Omega being taken by the Empire.
Yep. But no, I agree. I think it's funny, and I have like nothing to say.
It's
like,
great how it actually mirrors the original trilogy. Teams coming together,
yeah.
Then you hit an Empire Strikes Back, and the team is entirely fractured.
Well, I mean, that's
going into the end.
That's like the formula for pretty much any story, right? You introduce a team or a character or a bunch of characters, then in the middle you introduce a conflict, and then resolution. So it kind of works naturally, I suppose, right?
I suppose. Do you know that the Bad Batch actually won Saturn Award for both Season 1 and Season 2?
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's how good it is. Then they talk about their decision to kill off Tech. There were a lot of conversations that went into that, and we even tried to talk ourselves out of it many times because he's such an important character to the show, to all of us and the crew. And we know he's important to the fans. But what we're showing in Season 2 is that the galaxy has changed, and the Empire is now very powerful in the early years. So we're trying to be logical in the sense that the Batch keeps putting themselves in these positions, and ultimately there has to be a time when they do lose. Even Dave said when we were pitching him ideas for leading up to the finale, if you're going to have them go against Tarkin, Tarkin's smart. Tarkin will be able to pull one over on them, and as he should, to again show how the balance has changed in the galaxy.
So pretty much confirmed Tech ain't coming back. Mm-hmm. Between what D. Bradley Baker said, between this and Tarkin needing a win, yeah.
Tarkin should have a win. He's really strong right now.
Well, yeah, he's in a great position. The Empire is just rising to power. Why would you want to show them like losing all the time when they're trying to solidify themselves as this legitimate thing that is happening to the galaxy? So yeah, it makes sense.
It's interesting that when our 3-episode premiere will be starting up soon.
Midnight. Pacific time, which means 2 a.m. Central time, which is where we are, and 3 a.m. on the East. So yeah, if you were hoping for that 8 o'clock or whatever release here in the U.S., nighttime release, no. It's morning release or midnight or whatever you want to call it.
Well, we're going to start out with a really fractured team. We've got Tech gone. Echo is still off with Rex. Omega and Crosshair are in prison. And Rex and Hunter are the only Bad Batch still on duty.
Wow, yeah.
They said, the very mathematical logistics of how we normally would have the team operate was massively different without Tech there. But emotionally, the most important part, the way that the loss of Tech affected Omega, Hunter, Wrecker, Echo, and Crosshair, even throughout the whole season, was, I wouldn't say heavier than we expected, but definitely very heavy. It's sort of like a reset of the squad, because when you first meet them in the very first episode of the series, they're a unit. They have a 0 fail rate, and they're very successful. But then Crosshair sides with the Empire, and then Echo leaves to go with Rex, and now Tech's gone, and now Omega's taken, and Clone Force 99 is not what it was. And the question is, will it ever be the same? Hunter and Wrecker are forced to change the way they do things in order to piece together what they can of the squad.
No, I think, like, you can see Crosshair leaving kind of throws a wrench in their plan right away there in Season 1. Like, they're so used to relying on him being the sniper, or maybe even being sometimes a counterbalance to the more optimistic Hunter at times.
Well, you need someone to push back to find a better plan sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So Hunter gets his orders questioned sometimes by Crosshair. Well, maybe not questioned as much as, Crosshair's like, well, there might be a better way. Mm-hmm. That was not a Crosshair voice, was it? Mm-mm. You sound more like Crosshair than I do right now.
Shut up. No, I don't. We know that they took Omega because they wanted to get Nala Se to continue her cloning research for the Empire, which she refused to do, and now they've got her to kind of force Nala Se's hand. But it was very important for the producers here to have the two of them together for season 3. They loved the dichotomy. They said, I love when the two of them are together. Crosshair is at the lowest point he's ever been, and Omega is as well. But she has a much more hopeful attitude, and it's, we're gonna get out of this. There's gotta be a way. And he's sort of...
You almost sounded like her more because of the...
And he's sort of given up on any of it because he's coming to terms with all the stuff he's done. And maybe he believes he deserves to be where he is. The journey that we take them on is one of my favorites, just because it's about Omega seeing the good in people and trying to get Crosshair to see the good in himself. And it's not an easy thing for Crosshair to do. But I think it's very human to be weighed down by the choices that you make. But I'll say one of my favorite dynamics in Season 3 is the two of them together.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the optimistic Omega have to play off the very down in the dumps Crosshair.
Well, he's got a lot of guilt for the things that he's done.
He's done a lot of things wrong. He made the wrong choice, and he now realizes he made the wrong choice, which sucks, right? There's nothing worse than, like, committing yourself to something and then realizing, ooh, that was
bad.
And then I ditched my brothers to do this. Like, ooh, ouch. Will they even take me back?
How can I redeem myself for the things I've done? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Star Wars is all about, right? Making the wrong choices sometimes, and how do you put things right if you can?
Okay, now let's move on to what they say about Dr. Hemlock.
I'm really curious to, like, all the, as much as I'm not a fan of the sequels, I am curious if this is all, like, Palpatine, Snoke, cloney stuff that we're actually getting into. I mean, I'm just curious because it's so strange, because I thought there was going to be this kind of link between this and the Mandalorian, and then it turned out, like, Mandalorian was, like, Moff Gideon. Is that, like, Moff Gideon taking what they're doing here and kind of repurposing it for his own needs after the fall of Palpatine? Is he, like, Palpatine dies, and he's like, well... Palpatine's dead, that's what it is. Now I'm going to take all this cloning stuff we were working on and, again, repurpose it for my needs. I'm just really curious to see where they're going with all this cloning stuff, because it can't just lead to Gideon. And we know, of course, when the sequels, Palpatine is doing his clone thing.
All right, so here's what they had to say. It's always a challenge coming up with a Star Wars villain, because there have been so many great ones. I think when we knew that Mount Tantus was going to be a major setting for the show at the end of Season 2 and into Season 3, the evolution of that character was obviously a doctor who's willing to do the Emperor's bidding, but who has this kind of dark past, who was rejected by the Republic because of the things he was doing, and now he's working in his top secret facility that not even a lot of people in the Empire know about. So he pretty much has a carte blanche to do whatever he wants to do, as long as he's also achieving the Emperor's ultimate goal. And that gave us a lot of room to play with. What would this guy be like? He's into creating, but his vision of creating is very different from the Kaminoans' version of creating. He has a plethora of clones to experiment on to his heart's content, and he doesn't have any qualms about that. He's voiced by Jimmy Simpson, who is just incredible and gives him this layer of eeriness. I'm always very unsettled when I watch an episode with him, because you never know really what the character's thinking and what the character's willing to do, and I think that's why he's so interesting. He's definitely not a battle strategist, but because he's studied clones, he knows how they think, he knows how they operate. So he does have a one-up on them in that sense, but the hardest thing for the batch is that they have no idea where he is.
I agree, the voice works very well for Hemlock. There's just something eerie and creepy about it.
Very creepy.
Yeah, you don't trust it immediately.
No, he's got that soft, creepy-ish voice.
Yeah, it's the soft, kind of very gentle, but not in... But there's like that menace underneath it, that coldness underneath it.
It's frightening.
Yeah, it is. It's perfectly cast for that voice, yeah.
Right. We also know that Dr. Emerie Karr will be in this season for a more pivotal, I think, to the season.
Other than just like kind of standing there and then at the end telling her, hey, I'm you, to Omega.
I mean, her existence even raises so many questions about what are her intentions. What does she think about what the experiments are that Hemlock is doing?
Yeah, because she's a Jango, essentially. And they're all Jangos, too.
Yeah, they say that the voice actress, Kesha Castle Hughes, is incredible. That her performance and the way she interpreted Emiri affected how she was written. And it was really cool to see. I don't want to give anything away, but her arc was one of the more unusual ones. The trajectory, I'll just say this, and be cryptic, was different than we might have expected. I think even though she's Omega's sister, they're very different because of how they were both raised. Which, again, is another commentary on clones and how the clones were treated during the Republic versus how the clones are treated now that they're in the Empire. She and Omega have a very interesting dynamic that evolves over the season.
Curious. Yeah, you certainly have to give them credit. They've set up a lot of stories, a lot of threads that you're interested to see how they get woven into the bigger picture of Star Wars, how these characters, their arcs are going to be resolved.
And I like that they had an understanding from the very beginning when they started this that they wanted 3 seasons, which means they're telling the story beginning, middle, and end exactly the way they wanted to and not being forced to go, well, we're going to shut this down early, cram it in. This is what they wanted.
I think more shows need to operate under that idea that, hey, we're, you know, and granted, like, sometimes a show, one season, you're like, oh, nobody's watching this, we can't continue it. I get that, but I think the problem is so many times the show is super successful right out of the gate, and you're like, well, we were shooting for, like, 3 seasons, but let's milk this thing for as many as we can get. And then you just kind of end up ruining whatever story you wanted to tell by just extending.
Yeah, I think they're on the right track here, going, we wanted to make 3 seasons, we're making 3 seasons, even though it was a great show.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans are really enjoying the Bad Batch. It again, it has its people who don't like the quote unquote filler episodes, but if you watch Clone Wars, there's a lot of stuff that could certainly be called filler there too. It's not as tight of a narrative even as I think the Bad Batch has. It's a more of a just an overarching. Here's the Clone Wars. Here's some stories, and there's some in there embedded in there is some character arcs and some ongoing stories. But Bad Batch is more. Certainly more tightly focused, but just has those episodes that you're like, well, did we need Tex racing episode? You know what I'm talking about.
Well, about the finale coming, they say it's been such a great show, but one thing that's really positive going into the season is we knew very early on this would be the final season. It's a blessing that can be a rare thing in our field. Knowing that, we were able to wrap things up the way we wanted, the way we felt the story deserved, the way that the characters should have it. And they do again use the words bittersweet. I don't know if they're only referring to their part in the story, if they're referring to the story in general,
itself,
because I think that apparently it sounds like it could apply to all of it.
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars almost always has a bittersweet ending, so that's what I'm kind of looking forward to in a weird sort of way.
Well, we are ending with the Empire in power.
Yeah, you
can't
have
expect it to be like, the Bad Batch defeated the Empire.
Yeah.
They can't.
No, obviously not. But, I mean, you do have to have something positive in there, but you also have to, it has to be counterbalanced and pretty much kind of lesser than the Empire's victory, if that makes sense. Like, that needs to be, like, unfortunately, but that needs to be, like, the message at the end. Like, the Empire wins. The clones' ending is pretty sad and tragic, but there's still hope that lingers on. And some of the clones will go on to do bigger and better things, as we know, in the end. Rex will be there at the Battle of Endor, for example. And we'll have to find out if anybody else will be of the clones. But for now, that's all we got for you this time. Now it is your turn to take to the comments below and tell us what you think about the upcoming Bad Batch series. Are you excited for Season 3? What do you think is going to happen? Whatever the case may be, leave those comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.